Okay, who's up for a psychological thriller? Behind Her Eyes is a Netflix original series that's available now. But is it thrilling, and should you be binging it? After a single mother has an affair with her psychiatrist boss, her life takes a strange turn when she later befriends his wife and finds herself caught in a web of secrets and lies where nothing is what it seems. We have four main characters in this dark story: Louise, David, Adele, and Rob. Louise is a strong and loving single mom. She works part-time in a psychiatry office and sometimes is able to go out with friends. As we get to know her, we find that she's hurting, lonely, and discouraged. She's also got some things in her past that seem to haunt her and cause her to experience night terrors. David is the psychiatrist that Louise works for. He's charismatic but awkward and uncomfortable. He has a loneliness to his eyes, and he looks like he's searching for happiness. The more we know him, he has a scared persona, but he may just be controlling instead. Adele is David's wife. She's quiet, and from the look in her eyes, she appears very lonely and sad. She seems to be scared or traumatized from something which causes her to be timid. She also comes across like she could be obsessive, or maybe it's just the loneliness and she's searching for connection. Rob is Adele's friend who we meet through flashbacks. He's a troubled young man dealing with a lot of hurts and sadness. He jokes to cover up his wounded spirit, and the way he dotes on Adele gives the feeling that he also could be a little bit obsessive. He has a jovialness to him, but is that just a mask for his loneliness? Now, this has a very British feel to the show and the drama, and not just because it's set there. Some of it is in the way the shots are framed, but also just in the overall execution. I love that there are several sequences that also feel very cinematic and artsy. I really enjoyed the imagery that's used in the series. There's a painting of a forest on a bedroom wall, and is this symbolically haunting, or is it a reminder or even a warning? There are several repeating scenes. Sometimes it's of a decrepit hallway with lots of doors, and sometimes it's a serene garden scene with a pond filled with lily pads, or sometimes even a forest with tall trees and a path that leads to a well. Each are representative of mindsets and feelings and are great in the way that they build the story. I love the mystery that is built too. There's an uneasy feeling from almost the very beginning. We see things that make us believe one character is an aggressor, but are they? The mystery is kind of a slow burn. It intermingles with the growing relationship complications, but it's in the background as to why David and Adele are so troubled and strained. I really enjoy the complication of Louise befriending Adele. The triad is awkward, tense, and it's full of deception. All these relationships are really fragile because they're not based on mutual interests, but instead on lies and deceit. The entire thing relies on everyone not sharing what they know or do. And if you were to put them in a Venn diagram, Louise would be in the middle, and that is the worst place to be for this kind of relationship. I also really enjoyed that because we experienced the story from both Adele and Louise's point of view, we're not sure who the reliable narrator is, or if either of them is. They're both hampered by their decisions and desires, which may cause them to not see things for how they really are, which are then relayed to us as the viewers. As we learn more and more about David and Adele, the mystery continues to build. Pieces fall into place slowly, allowing that tension to grow. And then the pace increases dramatically in the final two episodes where the show reaches its climax. The story uses flashbacks to help give us background on Adele and her history, and these flashbacks also allow us to meet Rob. But these flashbacks also really build questions as to what is going on and give some insight into the current relationship of David and Adele. And as we watch the flashbacks, several questions arise in my mind. And then theories begin to form as to what's going on or what is going to happen. And I like that I was mostly wrong about my guesses. I think some of the saddest portions of the story is when we get to see Adele in flashbacks and how happy she is. She's carefree and wildly in love and looks like she's full of joy. This contrasts wildly with the present. I mean, she's full of sadness and doesn't appear to have any joy left in her. And that difference is stark and glaringly obvious. Like I said, this is a psychological thriller, but there is a point about halfway through that the story introduces a mystical or slightly sci-fi element, and I think that may lose some people. The shift is different, and while it didn't bother me because of how it impacts the overall narrative, it did pull me out of the story for a little bit. And I do think that some are going to tap out at this point because it feels a little fantastical based on everything we've seen. But if you can stick it out, I think it does work fairly well, even if it does create a large story convenience. I had an uneasy feeling through the majority of this. I mean, the tone that is set by the characters is engrossing, but it's also very uncomfortable. This unknown tension is what really intrigued me. This is a twisted tale of love and lies. It's filled with unresolved traumas, hurts, and deception. Now, I don't think the dreams and sadness that Louise experiences are fully fleshed out, but based on the imagery, we do understand why she's troubled and sad. And while we do have some minor characters that also fit into the narrative, the thrust of the story relies on the four players and their interactions with each other. There are some special effects used in this as we are brought into our characters' dreams. We spend the most time in Louise's dreams, and they're pretty vivid, dark, and disturbing. And it's easy to see how these can then really cause her night terrors. The imagery looks pretty good too. I mean, once or twice though, as a character is walking on a non-solid surface or when they pass through a portal in their dreams, the graphics are a little bit wonky, but not so much that they're distracting. Overall, I was really sucked into the mystery and the drama of the characters. I mean, their flaws and lies created some really good intrigue, and I needed to find out what was going on. There are 6 episodes, and each are just about an hour long. I didn't get bored, and I found myself engrossed more and more as each episode progressed. And I loved trying to guess at what all the answers were. There is sex, nudity, a lot of profanity, and some violence. I give Behind Her Eyes 4 out of 5 couches. So are there any good psychological thriller series that you've seen recently? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for catching with me.